Hey, what's going on, everybody? I wanted to make this video for my golfers. If you are a golfer and you're looking for different movement exercises or kind of what to do in the gym, and you may not know, I wanted just to make this short little video with a couple of movement selections that I think will really benefit you. One of the things I just wanted to point out, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but when you think about the golf swing in particular, it's probably the most ultimate turn of any sport, and it has to be super perfect and precise. And from a movement standpoint, it's purely lateral from the way it works. So when you think about the movement and you analyze the swing and you look at the pelvis, you're trying to lateralize your pelvis in space while playing golf. So with that, I like to think a lot about how the foot works, right? And we have these strong proprioceptive muscles in the hand and the feet that send sensory awareness to the brain. And that sensation from the feet works with the pelvis, okay? So if we're trying to lateralize the pelvis, we need some sort of signal from the ground up. And a lot of times what I often see is the inability for athletes to pronate or lengthen or compress the ground in their feet. So I wanted just to go through here later on in a video what some of those exercises may be to help you pronate and evert the foot, okay? There should be some sort of dissociation between the way the pelvis lateralizes or shifts left and right and your head. There needs to be a dissociation because that's just how the movement patterns work, and it's so important for sports like golf or tennis or baseball, sports that use clubs or sticks or bats to hit objects. And the best are really able to feature this pronation, this inside edge of the foot, and find the ground. Look at some of the best golf swings in the game, and you can see this. Guys like Rory McIlroy do a great job with this dissociation between the pelvis and the head, or the thorax, which is kind of like your breastbone there. Furthermore, like how quickly can you lateralize segments of your axial skeleton, which would just be from your head kind of to your pelvis. That's kind of like your structure, like your axial skeleton, we call it. How quickly can you lateralize segments and then feature your appendicular skeleton, which is kind of like your arms and your hands, trailing that like a whip, okay? So you need to lateralize your segments here, and then your arms and legs act like whips to follow that. And this is a huge influence on how far you can hit a golf ball and how consistent you are when you analyze the golf swing. No wonder why the golf coaches are so detail-oriented and specific. Well, it's because it's extremely difficult. If the movement isn't precise in every segment, then you will most likely see the shape change in a ball, whether that's as drastic as a slice or a hook, or it could be minuscule like a fade or a draw, or you can't get that nice ball flight that you need, that trajectory to be successful. So with all this being said, guys, one thing I just wanted to show are a couple movements. Movements that'll help you lateralize your pelvis, movements that'll help you get that strong pronation or lengthening in the foot, almost like if you have a high arch, almost like dropping that arch, which is compression, pushing force into the ground. We need to lengthen the foot, drop the arch. So I'm just going to feature a few movements for you guys. Hope you enjoy. If not, no big deal. Just 4 movements that you'll see here to come. All right, take care. Hey guys, in that drill that you saw, we're working on pronating the foot or finding length. When you talk about internal rotation, you have to couple that with pronation of the foot. So one of the things that I know I use all the time, because I have these big steep arches, is I use wedges to close the gap and try and push my foot into length, okay, and find pronation. What pronation really is it's kind of like I talk about a lengthening of the foot. It's more of like the compression point. So if like you're running and you transition from heel strike to toe off, the mid portion of that, aka the mid phase, is when we're pushing or compressing into the ground. That is coupled with internal rotation and pronation, or lengthening of the foot. Now, what oftentimes happens is our rear foot, or our calcaneus, can't, I guess, rock and roll it, you could call it. It can't roll in opposition from the front or from the forefoot. If it can't do that, that's when we see, like me for an example, tons of Achilles tendon issues, all right? Achilles tendinopathy, all right? Severe Achilles tendon problems, ankle issues, tendon ruptures. All of that can be rooted in the calcaneus not being able to move. So one thing I really love to do, and I have tons of these, you'll probably see them around the gym, are use these wedges to find length in the foot, fill in space if there's any gap on drills like pronating and supinating the feet. So if you don't have a wedge, super simple. You can use a sock and put that sock underneath your foot in different areas to try and find pronation or supination. And then when we're going through that, remember, so like pronation is we're trying to lengthen it. So the rear foot and the forefoot need to be moving in opposition, right? So if this was my foot, all right, and it moves that way, and this is the heel goes the opposite way, and vice versa. So, excuse me, if we're finding pronation, if this were pronation, right, and I was moving it this way, I would need a wedge to slide it in here to kick the heel to the outside, aka evert, slide out that heel, okay? And that's what we're doing with that drill, right? We're getting internal rotation, but we're using that wedge to fill in space to evert the heel to force it in opposition away from the forefoot. I love doing these drills before, as part of my warm-up, throughout the day, before I'm exercising or anything like that. If I'm running, doing anything athletic, change direction sports, anything like that, I love doing this drill just to kind of like wake up my feet a little bit and find that pronation that is so vital to getting that good internal rotation. All right, so you can do these as part of your warm-up. Like I said, you'll probably be seeing these around. I have a few of these that I'll bring. But yeah, you can get creative, use a sock, something just to allow your heel to reference and to push out there on the side. Guys, so what we have for these T-spine wall rotations is super easy in terms of setup. All you need is a wall, some sort of straight edge to push against, and all I want you to do is I want you to pin that close side to the wall. So what you're first going to do is bend the knees, get in that good stack position, exhale and roll your pelvis forward, almost like get that posterior pelvic tilt, okay? And then what I want you to do is kind of hinge at the waist, kick that close leg back, make sure there's no gap between your leg and the wall. Same thing with your hand. And then all you're gonna do is I just want you to rotate your arm, and your eyes are gonna follow as far as you can. You'll feel that sticking point. I don't want you to push through that. When you find that end range, I want you to stay there, okay? And then we'll come back. Eyes are gonna follow the hand, all right? From there, we're going to extend the hips and raise that close arm to the wall, okay? And you're gonna feel a big stretch in that thoracic spine. So if we take the skeleton model here, this is Albert, you're gonna feel a big stretch running here, like kind of like equivalent there to the scaps, and running here in the mid portion of your back. That's where a lot of the rotation happens in your spine, back in the T-spine, the thoracic spine. So you should feel a huge opening there when you do this movement. All right, these are the seated pelvis rolls. So all you'll need in terms of equipment is a box, something elevated to sit on. You can use a bench, that works great as well. And then something that can bias the adductors, so something that you can squeeze into in the inner groin. We need that to light up as part of this exercise, okay? So brought a couple options here. You probably have something lying around the house, or you can find at the gym. There is a foam roller. Those are always readily available at the gym, I know. And then also, you can use just like a Pilates ball, like a little exercise ball. And all you're gonna do, guys, is I'll use the foam roller in my example, is you're just going to put it kind of like halfway down your femur, all right? And I want you, in terms of intensity on the squeeze, maybe like a 5 or 6 out of 10. So if you had a partner here, he or she couldn't come and knock it down, but you're not, death gripping it for dear life, all right? And what I want you to do is use your hands here just to kind of initiate this twist. So what we're gonna do here is you're basically going to pull the femur into the socket on one side and push it away on the other, and then just going vice versa. And we know it's right if we're seeing rotation in that object, whether that's an exercise ball or a foam roller, right? So if I go here, watch my right side, this side here, all right? I'm pulling it back, and you see a rotation, right? Going this way, I'm pulling that pelvis back, and then the opposite, I'm pushing it forward, okay? Right, notice the rotation there in the foam roller, okay? My feet stay on, I'm not using my feet to initiate this. It's just basically pulling that femur back into the socket, into that pelvis there, all right, on each side, okay? This is great to initiate some of the dissociation we talked about earlier. Awesome exercises. You can do about 5 of these each side, a couple times a week for a couple sets, and that's just gonna help allow you to get some more range of motion in the pelvis. 6 inches works great. If you're a little taller, you can work around 8 inches. I have a couple stacked plates here. You can get creative. You can use a bench, you can use a step, whatever. Just make sure it's around 6-8 inches, okay? And then all we're gonna do, guys, is we're just gonna get into this offset position. So the front foot is gonna own 80% of the weight. The back foot is gonna have 20% of the weight. And what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna try and basically compress towards the midline. So I want you to imagine like you're pulling your femur, right? This bone here that connects knee, all right, up to your hip area, all right, this long femur. I want you to pull this back on the front leg and take this trailing hip and compress it, push it towards the midline, all right? And all we're gonna do is we're just going to bend down to a tempo, all right? And then stand back up, okay? One more time, it's here, pulling this back, and stand back up, all right? And if we had a weight, right, we could load it in that offsetting hand. That's just gonna allow us to find more of that internal rotation. It's gonna pull us onto the inside edge of our foot. Now, one thing I wanna point out is, for internal rotation purposes, kind of like what this video series is all about, working more in patterns of a hinge are way better, in my opinion, than working in squat positions. Why is that? Well, when we hinge, we naturally nutate our pelvis, or get more into that anterior pelvic tilt. And what that's gonna do when your pelvis goes back, when you mutate it, all right? When you bring this pelvis back, is it allows you to get more internal rotation. So this would be nutation of the pelvis, right? You're pulling it back. The opposite would be counter nutation, like if you push it forward, okay? So that will naturally kick on more of your adductors with that nutation, and that'll help you bias more internal rotation. So movements like the hinge are a lot better option for that, okay? So easy, simple setup with that. You can do like 5 reps or so each side for a couple sets, and you can do this every other day or a couple times a week during your work weeks.